afternoon, students. Today my group and I, Christian, Abby, and I, are going to be talking about gun control. Gun control is a very controversial issue. For example, the NRA is making you feel really bad if you don't support gun control. And Lincoln's institutions have a way of doing that. For example, first of all, you need to know what a Lincoln's institution is. And Lincoln's institution is a way for the people to connect with the government. For example, media, articles you read online, any way you find out information. And Lincoln's institutions can help our government policy, but also can be very negative towards our government policy, or not really help our government policy. It can help our government policy because you can find out credible information in these resources, YouTube videos, media, online resources, but also can be very negative because not only is there fallacies and biases, like for example in my CNN video that I chose, political candidates as my institution, Linkage Institution, it was basically very biased and only one point of view when there should have been 2 point of views. And Linkage institutions have a way of doing that, but also I found out some information that I didn't know before. And my peers and I can point out fallacies and biases and also credible information. And to be active members, you have to know about the different political ideologies on gun control, so there can be a very conservative and very liberal, and then you need to understand what information is correct and what's not, and Lincoln's institutions have a good way of doing that, but also you need to zoom in and find out what's true and what's not. And I hope you enjoy our video. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Christian Wallace, and I will be depicting an NRA ad I saw on YouTube and how it's really biased towards gun owners and the favor of guns. So one of the quotes they use in this ad is that good guys aren't being appreciated as much, and good guys aren't being noticed as much on the news as bad people who shoot people or murder people. And essentially by saying that good guys aren't being noticed, they are right. They're saying that good people like teachers and firefighters and policemen aren't being noticed, but at the same time they're trying to say that if you don't own a gun, you're not a good person. So it kind of contradicts their point of owning a gun. Also, in their ad, they take a lot of regular looking people. You could kind of assume what job they have by maybe being a teacher or maybe being a firefighter or something like that. And they're all wearing bland clothing, like black or white or gray clothing or something like that. And one guy, he's a really muscly looking guy, and he looks kind of like a firefighter and a police officer, and he has a shirt that says America. And that's the only time you have to see a brand going on. And that's kind of a bandwagon fallacy because you don't see any other brands, no logos, no, anything, pretty much anything on any of the shirts. So it seems kind of bandwagon to just have an America on one of the t-shirts. They also use a quote saying that there's a lot of bad people on the news, which is force and fear fallacies, because they're kind of trying to corner you by saying all you see on the news is bad people. They're trying to make the world around you seem so dark and negative, when the truth is, it's not that dark and negative. You don't really see it that often. And they're just trying to scare you into buying a gun. They also talk about how to reject the world around you, you should get a gun, which seems kind of odd because it's like saying, when you get scared, you should just shoot someone, which relates to the Trayvon Martin case of stand your ground. So they're basically saying, if you get scared or you feel feared, you should stand your ground and just shoot someone, which is a little bit violent and a little bit odd coming from the National Rifle Association. Yeah, and also it's a basically biased video because it's the NRA. They're obviously going to favor guns, and they just have fallacies left and right, and they're pinning Americans against Americans a lot. Instead of trying to solve the issue, they're trying to pin Americans against Americans by saying, if you don't own guns, you're a really bad person. And that's you're just putting someone down by saying unless you own a gun, you're going to be a bad person. And so I'm just trying to point out how one side is really biased and it's really unequal, and how this ad is trying to trick or brainwash a lot of people into thinking that owning a gun will help the world, when the truth is putting more guns in the streets will actually cause more violence. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Nitasha, and I'm going to talk to you about gun control. President Barack Obama and Rand Paul, two politicians, have a big say on gun control. For instance, on CNN, there's a video and a short little clip of President Barack Obama talking about the Sandy Hook Elementary shooting. Instead of talking about how he feels for the parents and how awful the shooting was, they only show a small clip of the video where he's talking about how his 23 executive orders could have prevented this, or prevented this in the future. Rand Paul decides to attack President Barack Obama and says, if there was a way, and he proved there's a way that would have stopped the event, he would feel for him. But also, Rand Paul is seen really mature and very you sympathize with Rand Paul because he's talking about how he feels for the parents, he feels for the children because he has children of his own. So instead of showing the whole clip where President Barack Obama talks about how he feels for the kids and how he's upset and stuff, they only show a small clip on CNN of him just talking about his executive orders, which is using the Sandy Hook Elementary shooting as a backbone instead of using it as a whole way to show how he feels bad. For example, there's 3 fallacies that were shown in the CNN video. For example, hasty generalization. Hasty generalization is a generalization based on insignificant, unpresented evidence. So instead of showing that there's evidence of Rand Paul, instead of showing evidence where President Barack Obama shows that the 23 executive orders could have prevented this from happening, instead they showed just that small clip and didn't show the whole clip in general. And then another thing was non sequitur, a fallacy based on it's not in order. So basically, instead of showing the whole video, President Barack Obama talking about how he feels for the children, how the shooting was very abrupt and there's stuff that could have prevented it, instead they only show a small section where he's basically using the event as a backbone, which makes President Barack Obama look really bad and Rand Paul look really good. And the last fallacy is argument to the person, an attack against the person who's proposing an argument. So basically, this is where Rand Paul is attacking President Barack Obama instead of showing that President Barack Obama is feeling the same way. He feels upset about the incident, and gun control is a very controversial issue. So there's President Barack Obama who thinks that his 23 executive orders could have stopped this and from happening in the future. And then there's Rand Paul who's saying if he could have shown a way that this could have prevented in the future, then he should have said something. But instead of showing the whole video and showing how President Barack Obama mentioned stuff about how he feels bad, how examples of how this could have prevented, they only show a small clip and show how President Barack Obama is using it as a backbone. So in general, this video is pretty biased and pretty much only supporting Rand Paul's side instead of President Barack Obama's side. And that is the 2 politicians.
My name is Abby, and today I had the opportunity to analyze the media, specifically on a video in which Glenn Beck talks about gun control. As the video starts, Glenn Beck talks about Aaron Alexis. Aaron Alexis is an African-American boy who killed 12 people in a mass shooting in Washington, D.C. in 2013. One interesting thing that we learn about Aaron Alexis is that he would spend 16 hours per day to play violent video games. That's crazy. It seems like Glenn Beck is blaming video games for Aaron Alexis' actions. But as we keep on watching the video, he explains that it is not his intentions to blame the video games in that specific shooting. He believes that he also believes that video games are programming children into cheering for the bad guys and to root for the good guys. People are also saying that it is normal for children to play video games. And if that is the case, as Glenn Beck states, the new normal is pretty darn frightening.
And go.
This is an example of a hasty generalization because Glenn Beck is stating that because of one person's individual actions, that will reflect on everybody else's actions, especially the ones who play violent video games. And he's basically saying that children should not be allowed to play violent video games because if they do, they will become murderers just like Aaron Alexis. Even though he says that he's not blaming video games, people can still assume that they will become murderers just like Aaron, Alexis if they still keep on playing these video games. As we keep on watching the video, Henry Winkler made a comment based on gun control. He said, "Another shooting in Washington, D.C. Please, America, do nothing to promote gun control, because that's how we roll until we've all shot each other." This is biased because he's saying that President Barack Obama isn't doing anything to stop shootings in America. Well, when will enough be enough to actually take action? Piers Morgan got into this conversation as well, and he made a comment with analogy because he is making a false assumption by saying that the NRA, which is the National Rifle Association of America, whose primary purpose is to protect and defend the right to keep and bear arms. He's saying that they are too busy to keep track of these people and actually do something about it. It's a very controversial topic because people have different opinions on it. Can people own guns just because they want to, or just because it makes them feel safe? Well, in a certain way they do, because as the Second Amendment states, individuals have the right to bear arms. But what if, as we look at the other side of it, what if something goes wrong? Or what about the public safety? There are many things to consider, but everyone has their own opinion on this. And this is how I analyzed the political media based on gun control. Thank you for watching.
Hello. After listening to Christian, Abby, and I talk about different perspectives on gun control, you understand that there's either a very liberal side or conservative side. And Lincoln's institutions are a structure that connects the people with the government. Lincoln's institutions help our political system because not only do we see different people's perspective on the issue, like political candidates, we can see what they feel about the issue. And then for mine, like my video was for gun control. President Barack Obama and Rand Paul were talking about gun control, and you could tell that there's some fallacies within the media source that I chose. And from looking at Lincoln's institutions, you can tell the point of views from different perspectives, but sometimes the point of views are different from our own. Like in that video, the point of view for Rand Paul wasn't the same as President Barack Obama's, and it wouldn't have been the same for mine either. After looking at resources, you have to always look at the fallacies and biases within the resources, because you can tell whether they're being credible, the resources are credible, but also like you can tell what side you are on and like what information is valid and what information is not valid. And then not only does linkage institutions benefit our political system, but also can hurt our political system, because you may get information that isn't completely accurate, or it can benefit you because you'll get information that you didn't understand and that will be true and you didn't see it in other resources. And after listening to all our three perspectives, we have a really good idea on our issues and our sources and how to like figure out what sources are accurate and what sources are not. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed our video. Thank you.
He made a noise. I can't do it.
What? It's time.
Good afternoon, students.
Ew.
Guys, you can look at President Barack Obama and Rand Paul. They both have to have a.
They both have different opposing views.